Meanwhile, what's a herd of mountain goats been getting up to in Llandudno?
Window shopping. They've been lots of them, yeah, in London. They're sort of shy creatures normally, and but because the streets are empty, they've suddenly just sort of sashayed into town like a sort of gang of Hell's Angels, and they've got the run of the place. They're having a tremendous time. I think they don't normally come into town because they find it hard to park.
And anyone who's worried about how close they are to each other, don't be, because they've developed herd immunity.
Oh, yeah. It's all the fault of the nanny state.
Oh. Also, this one.
That goat you reserved, Reverend Entry, to arrive.
They often come down off the nearby headland of Great Orme, but have been exploring a bit more widely thanks to the lack of cars and people. And to be honest, like many of us at the moment, they probably just wanted a break from the kids.
No goat pun unturned in this round.
The goats on the streets are an amazing sight because for hundreds of years they've been too frightened to cross the bridge. Of course, there's been plenty of other news around. Paul and Helen, I'm sure you won't have missed this one. Have a look.
I bet that's one of those heartwarming stories about animals that are inexplicably friends with each other, except I don't think the basset hound is a natural predator of the chicken.
This is the news that a basset hound has become best friends with a chicken. Let's try and pick the nuggets of the story now.
Well, according to who? Does the chicken say it's his best friend, or is it just the basset hound just boasting about his social circle?
Would you like to see another picture of the two of them? Here they are next to some sun loungers.
The chicken looks more into it than the dog, I would say. But then there could be one of those sort of yin and yang couples. You know, I mean, we all know people who are delightful but have unbearable partners. But the basset hound does look particularly miserable at times. But maybe that he doesn't photograph well.
Just before the country went into lockdown and Paul lost his shit, how did hairdressers manage to keep a sensible distance from their clients?
They trained robots with 100-foot-long arms to shave sideburns through open windows and skylights. Well, that's the thing, actually, about hairdressing. I mean, in 3 months' time, it's all going to be like the 70s, isn't it? Everybody's going to have really long hair. You know, it's all going to look very untidy. You know, people will do their own individual eyebrows. But in terms of what's actually on our head, I mean, Ian will be, well, most of us, it'll be a problem.
Let's have a look at a couple of examples.
That's very clever.
And here's another one. Yes, this is the news that the Grand National may have been cancelled, but we can instead watch the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse racing for the finish line. This whole situation is batshit crackers, and ironically, eating them is how this whole thing started. Several well-known people have contracted the virus, including Harvey Weinstein. What a rotten year he's having. You know, he's only just recovered from whatever put him on the Zimmer frame, hasn't he?
Time now for the odd one out round. Just one between you this week. Your 4 are CEO Lizette Ocampo, the serpent in the Garden of Eden, Donald Trump's former doctor, and the evil queen.
Buzz, 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 buzz,
Ian.
buzz.
Ian seems to be attacked by a swarm of bees.
This is about people smuggling something into a plant. So the serpent is disguised in the Garden of Eden. The Disney Queen is going to poison Snow White with an apple. Trump's doctor famously said Trump's diet was so bad he had to put vegetables inside each other to try and make Trump's diet better. I mean, literally smuggling a vegetable into the White House, which had been done before, but only during an election. And this woman, who I think I don't know anything about.
She was doing a Zoom meeting, I think, last week, and accidentally put on the filters that made her look like a potato. And then she couldn't turn it off.
So she's the odd one out.
Is the correct answer. They've all tricked someone into eating fruit and vegetables except for Lizette Ocampo, who turned herself into a potato using computer trickery. Lizette went viral last week after using the filter setting on her webcam to turn herself into a potato during an online work meeting. She couldn't turn the filter off and had to spend the whole meeting looking like this. The serpent in the Garden of Eden famously tricked Adam and Eve into eating forbidden fruit, but there's a detail in that story people commonly get wrong. Luckily, we have a theology expert with us tonight. Paul, what's the deal here?
Yeah. I've no idea. I thought the odd one out was that the Disney Queen had a tree growing out of her head. Yes, the question... there we are.
I think I know this one. It doesn't say it was an apple. We know it's fruit, but we don't know it could be a kiwi.
Yes, it's a common misconception that the fruit Adam and Eve took was an apple. The book of Genesis only specifies that it was fruit from the tree of knowledge. The misunderstanding over the apple in the Garden of Eden came about apparently as a result of a Latin pun. It's because the Latin for apple is malum, while the Latin for evil is malum. There you go.
I'm a little bit distracted because my wine delivery's just arrived.
Wine delivery?
Yeah, it's essential. This is essential goods.
How much have you stockpiled?
Well, it goes lovely with beetroot.
Do you want to go and get them?
No, it's fine. You'll have to go away. I'm on the telly. Leave the wine in the cupboard. Leave the wine in the cupboard. Sorted. Sorry.
It was recently revealed that former White House physician Dr. Ronnie Jackson used to trick Donald Trump into eating vegetables. According to the Daily Mail, he was so concerned about Trump's diet, Jackson took to hiding cauliflower in the president's mashed potato. While Sky News revealed that Jackson had also ordered Trump's staff to make ice cream less accessible, presumably by hiding it behind a book. After a year spent trying to get Trump to lose weight, Dr. Ronnie Jackson resigned to run for Congress. He said he didn't call in any favours from Trump as he had so much on his plate. In the book of Genesis, a serpent tricks Eve into eating some forbidden fruit. Not sure where Adam was at the time, busy burying all the fake dinosaur skeletons, I'd imagine. The evil queen tried to trick Snow White into eating a poisoned apple. Snow White lived with 7 dwarfs: Happy, Grumpy, Bashful, Sleepy, Dopey, Sneezy and Doc. The last 6 stages of coronavirus and the person you see at the end. Here's the next one, fingers back on buzzers. Zoe.
Well, it's a guy who spent a year and a half trying to recreate the flavour of KFC at home. And he's been experimenting with the 11 different herbs and spices and has finally cracked the code to create KFC at home. And he's put it on YouTube and people are so happy because they miss it, because they're missing restaurants. So once a week at home, because we can't go out and eat in restaurants, I try and create a sort of holiday-style taverna at home for me and the missus. I'll play the waiter, she plays the customer. I'll ignore her for about an hour and a half, then I'll bring her something she didn't want, and then I'll overcharge her at the end. And it just really feels like we've had a nice night out.
Yeah, this is Dan Fell from Warwickshire, who's been labelled a modern-day hero by the Daily Mail this week for recreating the KFC fried chicken recipe in his own kitchen. It took him 18 months. Zoe, 11 herbs and spices, do you know what they are?
Creosote.
I know what a lot of them are, right? There's paprika, ginger, pepper, white pepper, salt, I can never say it, oregano.
Oregano. It sounds like half the Wombles are in there.
What food is nurse Claire Stewart? Here she is, now obsessed with, and why?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to say beetroot, only because I've got 5 in my own cupboard.
You got 5 beetroot in your cupboard?
I've got 5 beetroot. I sort of panic bought beetroot.
You panic bought beetroot and I rushed out to the shops and got this. This gives me hours of pleasure, this does.
I bet it does.
She told The Sun that after a life-saving stem cell transplant, despite never tasting the snack before, she was left with an addiction for pickled onion flavour Monster Munch.
Oh, yeah.
We need to self-isolate her.
I'll swap her a beetroot for a bag of pickle flavoured.
Ah, you see, there we are. That's the currency of the future, beetroot. Get what you like with 5 beetroot.
You can.
This is the news that a Warwickshire man has come up with his own recipe for KFC. Now he's got to master the harder trick of convincing people that a tiny pot of 12 baked beans can really be called a portion. Also in the news, it emerged that members of the House of Lords are unhappy with the quality of the food that's been on offer there. The Times revealed that Lord Naseby put 6 official questions about snacks to the chair of the House of Lords Services Committee. That's his mistake. He should be asking the Master of the Rolls. The Sun also revealed that another unpopular choice in the House of Lords is ladyfingers. Don't think I've ever heard ladyfingers speak in the Lords. In other food news, a man was arrested for doing 110 miles per hour on the M1 while travelling from Nottingham to London to buy a loaf of bread because it was £1 cheaper. True. The arresting officer reached for his baton, which the driver then offered to buy off him. Anyone want to see a dog owner trying to trick their pet into eating carrots?
Yes.
From Waitrose and Partners. Christmas chocolate selection, 240 grams, was £10, no £5. 6 months matured Christmas pudding.
Shall we have a look at how the government have handled accusations of incompetence?
Badly.
Let's have a look.
But no apology, Home Secretary, for these failings which NHS staff and their families blame on the government.
Well, I'm sorry if people feel that there have been failings. I'll be very, very clear about that.
That's great. That's one of those I'm sorry if.
When I first started having, when I had a business that had customer complaints, to kind of protect ourselves, we'd use the if you feel. We're not admitting it. It's not our responsibility if you feel. You know, I mean, I learnt very quickly that really winds people up.
It just means if other people are so stupid as to take offence by the fact that I've done something they don't like, then I'm sorry for them. It's a non-apology.
Speaking of Priti Patel, did you see how when it was Priti Patel's turn to have a go at messing up the press briefing, her describing how many people have been tested for the coronavirus?
Oh.
Let's have a look.
I can report, through the government's ongoing monitoring and testing programme, that as of 9 a.m. today, there have been 974,000 tests carried out across the UK.
Phil, you've got an engineering degree. Just talk us through that number.
Yes, that number is what is known as of the Goldilocks point of the ideal number of tests to have. It's a very rare number. It's only been used a couple of times in history.
Isn't it more worrying that the Home Secretary can't read a number, so that this fine, if you go outside and you're sunbathing for 150 quid, might be 150,000 quid by the end of the week? Or if there's a prison sentence for walking your dog at the wrong time of day, maybe that'll be 10 years or 50 or 100,000 years. I'm genuinely worried. I mean, you know, we did quite a lot of jokes about the shadow Home Secretary, who wasn't very good on numbers in terms of the police. But, I mean, Priti Patel, she's in a league of her own. You've got to give it to the Tories. I mean, this is class number wangology.
I tell you what, I went to a chemist the other day to get a thermometer. Whoever put the price on that, I think, was using Priti Patel's number system. I mean, that was a number plucked from the air.
I live with my sister, and in a moment of desperation, she brought back a meat thermometer because it's the only thing she could find. So we've got a thermometer about this big now. And it's not very accurate.
Where'd you put it?
Maybe don't answer that question. But what is going to happen to Parliament?
It's going to become virtual, isn't it? That they're all sort of going to be doing it a bit like the way we're doing this show, where people are going to be sitting at home, presumably, and I don't know how many MPs there are altogether. It's like 660, isn't it? Something like that. So they're all going to divide the TV screen up into 660 little squares, and they will all be invited to speak one at a time.
And it's being organised by Jacob Rees-Mogg, which could be quite funny on Zoom, because if he just lies down, we just won't see him at all. Just a blank bench. I can't wait.
According to The Guardian, a lot of MPs don't think the online Parliament will work because taking spontaneous interventions will be hard to facilitate via video conferencing. I think we're proving that wrong tonight. What's the good news for MPs? It's to do with money.
Well, they're getting £10,000 for working at home.
They are getting an allowance of £10,000 if they need things to help them work from home. What might they need that costs £10,000 to work from home?
Chairs, tables, videos, you know, stuff.
Duck houses. Do you need your wife as your secretary? That seems to be very, very important. And particularly if she's in the next room.
And what about the police? They're encouraging people to inform on their neighbours now for persistent rule infringement. How are people with holiday homes trying to get around being stopped with luggage in the car?
Oh, I don't know, but they're all driving down at night, aren't they? Wasn't there lots of rumours about clandestine driving down the A303?
They're driving down in their cars with no luggage, and they're getting a courier company to send the luggage on, so that when the police stop them and they say, "Are you moving down?" here. They say, no, we're not. We haven't got any luggage.
Yes, this is coronavirus, which has been in the news this week. Priti Patel gave her briefing flanked by government advisors who kept the strict 2 metres away from her, which the Home Office has recommended with Priti Patel for about 5 years.
Time now. What was Donald Trump's latest contribution to the health of Americans?
He mused aloud whether it would be a good idea for people to inject disinfectant into themselves or to perhaps even drink it to clean out their lungs. I think he should be the first to volunteer. He later claimed that he was being sarcastic. There was a marvellous bit when he said, no, I was being sarcastic. I was talking to the reporters. And in fact, I was looking straight at you, he said to a reporter. I was looking straight at you when I said this. And the reporter said, I wasn't there.
I was just going to say, we ran a piece in Private Eye 3 weeks ago, which was meant to be a joke, saying that because bleach is very effective against the virus, perhaps you should put your head over a bowl of it and inhale it. And I just had no idea he was a subscriber.
Well, that just is a gratuitous advert for Private Eye. Why isn't Ian allowed to come on and gratuitously publicise Private Eye?
Well, as Paul says, he's got some very interesting ideas on how we might treat coronavirus that the experts might not have thought of.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or...
Oh, she just looks like every woman who's sat at the bus stop minding their own business and the weird crazy guy just doesn't leave them alone. Like, her logic is just stare at the ground for long enough and maybe he'll go away.
I can think of a good way of getting light into his body. I'd shove an angle-poised lamp right up the Oval Office.
She's not completely blameless either, because she's given interviews in which she said that Donald Trump's business past, which involves various bankrupt casinos, has given him skills and insights that really help him understand the science in this case.
Here he is saying goodbye to the first person to try injecting themselves with disinfectant.
We'll do it.
Okay. If you can remember back that far, this is the return to work of Boris Johnson on Monday. There's speculation as to how Boris's new son might affect his thinking on government policy. Well, if my experience of dealing with new babies is anything to go by, he'll be wanting to reopen the pubs within about 2 days. Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, welcomed the news and said for Carrie and Boris, 2020 is certainly a year they will never forget. Although hopefully with enough therapy, the rest of us might.
Meanwhile...
Yes, this is the news that Boris Johnson's senior advisor and the nation's sweetheart, Dominic Cummings, is going nowhere for a change. After a joint scoop by the Daily Mirror and The Guardian claiming that Dominic Cummings had broken the country's strict lockdown by driving 260 miles to Durham and embarking on a further jaunt to Barnard Castle, he held a press conference. Ian, I'm sure you were convinced by that.
He gave an hour and a half of utter twaddle. It's absolutely clear he did break the regulations. He found one tiny clause, which he said made an exception, but that didn't cover the journey, for example, to Barnard Castle. It was nonsense. It was absolute nonsense. And I suppose people were cross because they think he's taking us for an idiot. I mean, the eye test thing is marvellous. The idea that you're not sure whether you can drive back to London. So in order to test your eyesight, you put your 4-year-old in the back of the car and drive around and see if you knock over any pedestrians.
Let's be honest, who hasn't decided to test their eyesight under a strict lockdown during a terrifying global pandemic by strapping their young child into the car and heading to a town in Teesdale?
Has anybody said whether weird blurred vision is a symptom of this virus?
Boris has. Boris had some glasses as a prop at the press conference afterwards and went, whoa.
Another top medical expert.
Shall we have a look?
On the point about eyesight, I might just say I'm finding I have to wear spectacles for the first time in years because of I think because of the effects of this thing. So I'm inclined to think there's some I think that's very, very plausible that there's that eyesight can be a problem associated with coronavirus.
Thanks to a tweet from Richard Littler, we've got an idea of what Mr. Cummings would have seen when he got to Barnard Castle. Michael Gove was asked to defend this novel approach to optical healthcare by Nick Ferrari on LBC.
Would you go on a 60-mile round trip to test your eyesight? I have, on occasions in the past, driven with my wife in order to make sure that what's the right way of putting it?
I'm staggered. I don't know how you're going to get out of this one, but it's going to be fun.
No. I think people who know me would know that I'm not an authority on driving.
Well, can I just ask a question here? What does LBC stand for? Is it, look, bullshit's coming?
He said he's not an authority on driving, but he's been across all the media clearing Cummings completely, saying he didn't disobey any of the rules. It's absolutely clear. So he clearly is an authority on absolutely everything. He's one of those experts we used to hate.
On Wednesday, the Daily Star front page offered some helpful advice to its readers. Cops, don't drive if you're blind. Ian, what exactly happened during this essential yet scenic excursion to Barnard Castle?
They drove around, then he seemed to think that his eyes were okay. His son needed to go to the toilet. I know, it's just so ridiculous. They got out, the son went to the toilet. Oh, they played for a bit. So it wasn't quite a toilet stop, it was more of a play stop. Then they got in the car again and said, right, my eyes are fine, we'll go back to London tomorrow. Not now, obviously, because that would make sense, but it might not fit the narrative, which has been constructed backwards from the known facts to fit them.
Well, what he didn't say was that the son had actually been peeing into the car tank to fill it up so that they could get back to London. Yeah,
absolutely. Come on, son, drink up the Lucasade. We've got another 200 miles to go.
Janet, if I was to say to you, that's Barney Castle, what would I be saying?
That's Barney Castle.
Mm.
Got no idea.
It's an old saying about how it's a load of old tosh, isn't it? It's an old English term for poor excuse.
Yes, it is, yes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It is, isn't it?
I never heard that.
It's from the Book of English Proverbs and Proverbial Phrases of 1929. Barnard Castle was used as a slang response to someone making a ridiculous excuse for their actions. I know you couldn't make it up, could you?
Yeah.
Ian, when did Prime Minister Boris Johnson know that his advisor had made the 260-mile trip to Durham?
It's not entirely clear, like so much. According to Mr. Cummings, there was a conversation when they were both so ill they couldn't possibly remember it.
Cummings said at the press conference that he told his boss he was in Durham several days into his 14-day stay. When we were both sick and in bed, I mentioned to him what I'd done. Unsurprisingly, given the condition we were in, neither of us remember the conversation in any detail. Is it just me, or is anybody else getting a Morecambe and Wise image in their head there?
Yes, exactly.
Right, let's get on with the show, and we start with the bigger stories of the week. Ian and Hannah, have a look at this.
It's Boris Johnson's first family photo. Are you one of mine?
Yeah, got to wash your hands of everything, really.
And Michael Gove there, looking for someone to blame. And finally, a metaphor there for thinking things through before you commit.
This is why we need schools to open.
I am a free, I am not man, a number, of course, a message we can all get behind.
Having effectively persuaded us to stay at home, the government is now in the position of trying to persuade us not to stay at home anymore. And this is a bit of a problem because people got very scared and then they're staying a bit scared. So things that most people think should happen, like schools opening, we've got to open schools eventually, but everyone suddenly got very scared and said, we don't want to do it now, we don't know how to do it, are we going to be safe enough? And again, there hasn't been much of a lead in terms of saying, this is what we'll do, it'll be fine. So there are lots of things we could do, but again, no one's sure about the science. But luckily, I've got a scientist on my panel, so whatever I say, even if it's rubbish, I will blame her.
Yeah, I take full responsibility. I think the thing about a lot of this is that there's a difference between the risk to yourself as an individual and the risk to your family and the risk to the country as a whole. And while there are certain things that we can probably do, we can probably risk it as a country as a whole, people slowly going back to work. That doesn't mean that the individual level risk is non-existent, and I think that's the reason why it's just this strange contradiction. You can see your boss, but you can't see your family. Your cleaner can come round your house, but your best friend can't. It's just we're in this strange limbo between the two states.
Well, it's just been so confusing from the beginning. That's why, isn't it? At the start of it, Boris
Boris Johnson was saying, well, we must shake hands, and then changing his mind. So you must not travel unless you're going somewhere, and must stay at home at all times when you're not out, and go to work but not travel there. So you must float, and that this will come in on Monday unless Monday falls on a Monday. And then they wonder why people are confused.
Well, that made more sense, to be honest.
Primary schools in Denmark have been open for a month. How did that go?
It actually went okay. So there was a bit of an increase in transmission initially, and then it stabilised again. So actually it looks like so far it hasn't had the terrifying effect that many people fear.
What is one of the more confusing aspects of the... I've just noticed here's a question I should have asked you earlier. What's one of the more confusing aspects of the government's Back to Normal campaign? It is the... I'll give you the answer. It's the planned return to school of primary-aged children on June the 1st. What did Michael Gove say about this?
You're accusing the government of being confused, and you've just given us the question after we've given you the answer.
If you won't all say things in the right order for the piece of paper they've given me, remotely, from your flipping homes on the other side of the internet, within a few minutes on Andrew Marr, Michael Gove made 2 claims. Do you know what the first claim was?
I'm not a sex offender.
I don't think that... Well, I imagine he may have said that.
But he didn't know, did he?
There was no risk of sending children back to school. And then he said there was a risk.
He said, yes, teachers will be safe. And then a few moments later, he said, no, I can't guarantee it, that no teacher will be infected. What did people do with their newfound freedom this week?
They went to the Lake District and to the Peak District and to wander around in Wales and Cornwall.
They flocked to various beauty spots throughout the country, including Dorset's famous beach at Durdle Door. Let's hope they disinfected the Durdle Door handle.
Some people are so brilliantly... There's a bloke I heard on a radio phone, and he was radio phoning, and he said, I'm 83, and he said, I'm going down the market stall same as normal, because look at me, there's nothing wrong with me. And I thought, well, yeah, but there's something about the nature of disease you've not quite grasped, that even with really bad diseases, you are generally quite fine up until the moment you get the disease. There are no diseases, I mean, I have to ask Hannah for confirmation of this. As far as I know, there are no diseases so bad they make you ill before you get the disease, you stupid idiot.
I can confirm that's science fact, by the way. That's definitely science fact.
Brilliant. That's one fact we can lock in. Following the government's confused message about whether to stay home or go out, one man tries to do both.
Moving house.
I'm going to show you a picture and I want you to tell me what's happened to it since the picture was taken to make it newsworthy. And I use the term newsworthy fairly loosely. So here's your first one.
Oh, this is a dumper truck and somebody, I'm sure somebody has filled it up to be a hot tub, haven't they, during the lockdown?
Maisie, you are across the news that counts, aren't you? This is Yorkshire builder Dave Eastwood, who turned his dumper truck into a hot tub. Here it is. Paul, what's the main advantage of having a hot tub in a dumper truck, do you think?
Well, it's better than having a dump in a hot bath. I don't know.
Well, according to Dave, the best part is you can drive it round so it's always in the sun. You just have to drive it slowly so the water doesn't spill. Yeah, never mind your missus, Dave. Ian, how did Dave create the bubbles in his hot tub?
I think my previous answer established that, didn't it?
Is it bottled water?
According to Yorkshire Live, Dave uses shower gel and a hand drill.
Wow.
Join Dave next week where he'll be making a back massager out of a jackhammer. So this is Yorkshire builder Dave Eastwood, who turned a dumper truck into a hot tub. I've also gone to extreme lengths to keep my wife happy during lockdown. I've moved into the garage. Builder Dave filled his rusty dumper truck with water and shower gel and created bubbles using the plastering attachment of a hand drill. Despite all that, he's still been declared the most romantic man in Yorkshire. OK, so fingers on buzzers or whatever you're doing. The question is, what's happened to this? Go on, Ian.
Cadbury's have changed their logo. They've paid a huge amount of money to redesign their logo so that it says something completely different. Here's some chocolate.
Yes, well, this is the news that after 50 years, Cadbury has decided to change its logo in a major brand refresh. So this is the old logo. Now, shall we have a look at the brand new logo, which some advertising experts have said can't have been cheap? Boom!
Oh, I hardly
Wow.
recognised it.
No, I thought this was ridiculous because it looked so similar to the old one. But then I read around some of the industry publications and they explained that for £1 million you change the whole global footprint of the brand. And I still thought it was completely ridiculous.
But I did read Cadbury saying it wasn't £1 million, it was just hundreds and thousands.
Oh dear. Yes, well done.
Look at Paul's face.
Cadbury's don't make hundreds and thousands. The joke is flawed.
It's Captain Logic.
Why can't you let Ian have his moment, Paul?
Well, if he started letting him have moments like that, there'll be no end to it.
Yeah, I'll be doing panto.
Jokes with punchlines that don't make any sense.
Well, Cadbury's have apparently officially denied that it cost them £1 million. They didn't come up with the hundreds and thousands gag because apparently they said it wouldn't really make sense.
Exactly. And if they've paid £1 million for it, I mean, that figure's out of this world. Oh, no, sorry, that's Galaxy. See, now that's a joke, Ian. That's a joke.
Look, all that happened is the, very overpaid consultants, and they were asked to find a new angle on it. If you look at the picture, they have. It's about 45 degrees.
Ian, before I laugh at that, can I just get verification from Paul that makes logical sense?
No, I think that was just a general comment. I don't think it was meant as humour.
I love this. Paul's become a sort of VAR of logical jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, complete vasted.
A Cadbury spokesman said, this is part of a much wider brand refresh, which will touch all of Cadbury's visual assets. I'll be honest, since lockdown, I can't stop touching Cadbury's visual assets. In exciting news, guys, I've got a bonus point on offer. On the new dairy milk packaging, the glass and a half of milk is pouring into a chunk of chocolate. What was the glass and a half of milk pouring into on the old chocolate wrapper?
Was it being poured in down the throat of a lactose-intolerant toddler?
No, it's actually poured into the eye of the word milk.
Oh.
There you go.
I think it's cleverer that it pours into the eye.
Is that another reference to your magazine?
With any luck.
So, this is the news that Cadbury has unveiled its first new logo in 50 years. A spokesman for Cadbury said they wanted to review the brand image. We only wish we had your problem, said the head of marketing for Corona Beer.
Shall we have...